Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners. And Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 12th, 2020. Ground on the Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charles, I'm thinking about the health and welfare of all the Americans, hoping that everybody stays safe and first and foremost, want to say thank you and God bless you to all the frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, the doctors, the paramedics, Charlton, all of those people who are working daily to keep America healthy.
They do a very fine job. Really appreciate that. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Big C, sometimes you just want a Coca-Cola. I know it may not be the healthiest drink in the world, but sometimes it just tastes good. And something that tastes good to me also is making sure we give out this Veterans Crisis Hotline. They are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones deal with crisis. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, I think, Charlton, during this corona pandemic that our veterans are becoming the forgotten entity in America. The great sacrifices that they have made over the decades and seem like they're lost in the wave of confusion that's going on between science and politics. But our veterans suffer some 20 suicides a day, Charlton, as a collective group, as well as people in mainstream society. And we have to find a way to stem suicide as a whole in this country. And our first and foremost thoughts are always about the veterans when it comes to this, Charlton. I know we give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, but it's very difficult for many veterans, Charlton, when your home is a sidewalk and you're living in a tent and you're homeless. And so we have to find a way to get access to communications in the hands of most of the veterans that we have that are displaced in this country via cell phone, internet, or however we can. But it needs to become a national message daily throughout America, Charlton, and everyone's PSAs that they put out on their broadcast networks, that the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there to help American citizens, especially our veterans.
Reach out and touch somebody's hand and make this world a better place. If you can, you do that by calling 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and they can get some help because you picked up the phone and made the call. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. Just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it, just like car dealerships do it, sports teams do it too, even Coca-Cola does it. You can do it too. Let TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Also, for those of you looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can learn more about what's going on in the world of real estate. I know so many people are talking about how to be good sports back, Big C, and they want to make sure that they have something to cheer for, and it's almost infuriating, not really infuriating, but think about this. And I love the crack of the bat. I love the fact that when we get baseball back, we having some promos for San Francisco Giants baseball also. But there's Major League Baseball, should players and the owners, should they really be fighting over money? I think as the average American is challenging in making ends meet, Big C. About 30 million people unemployed, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about baseball and this fight that's going on over money, the average baseball player makes $4.4 million a year. Yet everybody doesn't have the $200 and $300 million contracts.
Yeah.
But the average player in Major League Baseball makes $4.4 million a year. So there's not many people struggling that are playing that game.
No.
And they're talking about reducing it down to an 82-game schedule. But the big sticking point right now is money. How much money are the players going to be paid? And at some point you would think that they would have a sensibility of reality, understanding that Americans are struggling out there every day. Many people have lost their employment, Charlton. America's sitting right now at close to 20% unemployment. I know that the statistics don't state that,
right,
but a lot of people have fallen by the wayside, and their unemployment has run out. So as you think about people not having jobs, and even if they're allowing fans back in the arenas, the stadiums, are they going to have the affordability to get back in and watch the ball games, Charlton, with their family?
I think it's almost to the point now. We just talked about just the other day how there's some baseball players that make over $200,000 per game. $200,000. And that's win or lose, Big C. The money is there just like a handshake used to be there all the time. It's just there. So when people, I know you were saying if teams don't play, can baseball players file for unemployment? And they may have a right to it. But could you imagine the pushback on fans who can't go to the games anyway, but the pushback on a guy that makes $200,000 per game filing for unemployment because he can't get his $200,000 per game paycheck? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this fight comes down between the owners, and it also comes down between health science, Charlton. The owners, I know, are wanting to get back on the field, to get the players back out there playing, and they would like to have a full season where they could pay them their full contract. But they don't want to discount the contract. That's where the players are right now, is that they're not wanting to discount. And everybody's going to have to give in this scenario. As we look at everyday Americans who are out there, and this is one of the things that bothers me about all the other sports shows.
Yeah.
They never address the fans and the fans' financial situation.
Yeah,
they're
they don't
talking
care.
about players, talking about player contracts,
yeah,
talking about players signing new contracts, talking about players renegotiating their contracts. They're not talking about the unemployed Americans who really support a majority of those contracts, Charlton, by being able to come to the stadiums. They support the owners by being able to utilize concessions and all the other venues around the stadium. So this is the thing that gets me, is that the millionaires are complaining where the people who don't make anywhere near that type of money during a lifetime are struggling and still want to come to a sporting event.
Yeah, it just to me is somewhat insensitive. But we have to also know that at that level of money, people don't care about the fans. They care about that TV contract that they want to see. See, they're pushing to get the TV contracts to show games. They're pushing to keep the fans away because it's okay for players to get sick, but they don't want fans to get sick. They know that. That's why they're saying, let's just play the game without the fans. And the players have to be asking themselves, well, what do you think about me if I play? There's a Major League Baseball owners. They gave the go-ahead on Monday. They made a proposal to the Players Union that could lead to the coronavirus delayed season starting right around the 4th of July. Now, I know with the 4th of July, the fireworks and our nation's independence, what a time to bring baseball back, because they're going to do it anyway, irrespective of health, Big C. So if they bring it back with all this money garbage they're talking about, 4th of July, baseball saying, let's start it then, even if we have empty seats. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, as much as the fight back with science is saying, it's not safe, they need to pause, all of this is going on with all these sports leagues and all these collegiate leagues, Charlton. As you say, they're going to play sports.
Oh, yeah.
The science part is not part of the equation when they're writing the check. When you look at athletes, I mean, there's a turnover every year in professional sports and collegiate sports, even high school sports, Charlton, with athletes, because there's always a new class. That's what they look at.
Yeah.
What they're hoping, Charlton, is that if they do have any athletes that fall ill, that it won't be a catastrophic number, that it will only be a few. So that's what they're looking at. The need of the many, outweighs the need of a few or the one.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying. And if you put it down to a vote, Charlton, and you look at these athletes, a lot of them are in the same plight that the everyday citizen is. they're unemployed. All of them don't make the $200 million contract, or you say $200,000 per game.
Yeah.
If the average salary in Major League Baseball is $4.4 million, you have to take into account the guy who's making $25, $30 million a year, Charles, to bring that average back down to the other players who are not doing that. There's players that probably make less. There's a lot of players that make less than $1 million a year in baseball, even though that's nothing to write home about or cry home about. You're looking at the guys who are living from paycheck to paycheck, who count on getting back into spring training or training camp, whatever you count on, to start getting that money all over again because they've lived beyond their means during the offseason.
Yeah, and I know when you tell that to average mainstream population that some baseball player that makes $400,000 a year, or even there was a guy that got suspended we talked about last week, and he made $500,000 a year, and he apologized for taking the goodies that they taste yummy, but it was illegal, even though it tastes good at Big C. He got suspended, and he said, I'm only making $500,000. I mean, $500,000 a year is not like I'm making $5 million a year, so it's a different world. But I want to ask you, because we know it's going to happen, Americans have a lot of ego in America right now. We all know that, too. We have this nationalistic point of view on things. If Seoul, South Korea can play Major League Baseball, they can't be more macho than American League Baseball players. And I also want to bring this up. Most Americans do not get an A when they're in high school or college. They don't get an A in science. They don't get an A in math. They don't get an A in chemistry. Almost everybody gets an A in PE. And so all these guys proposing for a PE to keep playing, even though the guys in the science labs, in the chemistry labs are saying, wait a minute, there's a virus out there that might put you in the hospital. That's why we're having less of a pushback with the guys that got an A in PE. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the thing about where you're looking at right now, Charlton, is that they're not talking science. They're talking economics. Even when you look at the hearing that they had today with the Senate and Dr. Fauci and a few other health officials, Charlton, they were talking about economics more than they were talking about science. We even had some people who tried to downplay science, and even Dr. Fauci, Rand Paul, for one, said that Dr. Fauci wasn't the end-all, the be-all, that, he couldn't be sitting there talking about the economics. He was not talking about economics.
Yeah.
What the politicians are trying to do right now is use school as an excuse. You got to get the young kids back in school. And so the young kids have always been the sacrificial lamb, saying, well, it doesn't affect the young kids of America. Yet we've seen opposite of that with some 82 cases that have been affected young kids, Charlton, with, corona-like, symptoms that they've suffered, and a few of them have lost their lives, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So they're trying to play off school and say, you got to get people back in school. But anybody who's been to school know that you have a wealth of elderly teachers. At least 20 to 25% of the teachers in any school district are above 60 years of age, Charles.
Yeah, they are. That's
and so
true.
all of those people are going to be at risk in coming to school, whether they bring it in or whether they take it out. They're going to be in contact with people in their same age group when they're not in the classroom.
Would you be willing, sometimes you just like athletes work out. You get to a point where you can't push the weights anymore. You can't run any further than what you've run. You just got to slow down or stop. Even marathon runners, they run the 26-mile marathon. You see people collapsing at the finish line. Guys that try to bench press 225 pounds. A lot of guys can push it between 30 and 40 times, but hardly anybody has ever pushed more than 40 times on the bench press. So if Major League Baseball, if they get to 82 regular season games against opponents in their own divisions, and you have the interleague matchups, of course, but if you limit the AL East versus the NL East, the AL Central versus the NL Central, the AL West versus the NL West, that cuts back on travel across the country. I don't know why that matters when the guys have worth several $1 billion if an airplane traveling across the country is going to matter. But would that at least be something you can live with, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they're talking about eliminating airplane travel, Charlton, and by you talking about playing the AL East versus the NL East, that's bus travel is what they're looking at. They're looking at dealing with charter bus and eliminating players being with people other than just essential personnel. I mean, players fly charter anyway, so I don't know why they would have to worry about a bus. But,
right.
I guess if the owners want to cut overhead, they put the players on the bus and show them what it's like.
Greyhound, right?
Yep. But, either way you slice it, you have to screen everybody who's in any type of physical contact distance with the players, with the team, with management, or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no way that you're going to be able to keep everybody apart.
No.
It's just impossible. And so when they talk about social distancing, so where's the umpire adjacent to the catcher and the batter that's in the batter box? How far are they all apart?
Yeah.
They're all within 2 to 3 feet of each other. So there's no social distancing. The umpire's right over the catcher's shoulder, breathing in his ear, whispering about what he had to drink last night. And the batter's sitting there, trying to listen to what they're saying.
Right.
So they're all within 2 to 3 feet of each other.
Yeah.
You get to first base. I mean, when the first baseman's holding a runner on, they're right there within elbow reach of each other, Charlton. So there's no social distancing in the sport as much as they want to talk about it, that baseball can social distance.
Yeah.
No, there's instances throughout the game that you're going to be within 2 to 3 feet of each other, breathing in each other's face.
Yeah, I would propose that all the owners get together and play baseball. If they really want to see it and they're not concerned about health, let the players be, they're going to be social distancing in those comfortable suites that they have at the stadiums. Let the players have their own suite and let the owners get out there and run around the bases. I think California, Gavin Newsom, who's home to 5 Major League Baseball clubs. You have the San Francisco Giants, Oakland A's, the California Angels, actually the Los Angeles Angels, now of Anaheim, the LA Dodgers, and then you have the Padres down in San Diego. And they have the All-Star game scheduled for Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine on July 14th. Most likely, if they have any type of series, that's going to be called off. I guess they want to just limit travel exposure. But if cooler heads prevail, and it probably won't, because money is worth more than a lot of things in this country, and I don't think that what they say, that red-blooded American man wants to say that he didn't have the stones or the cojones to do what the people in South Korea are doing. I think that all will play a part in it. But at least a little bit of hope for people staying healthy. Gavin Newsom says they want to make sure that public health and public safety are in control first before we start having people slide into home plate. Mixing your thoughts.
Well, what I want to see first and foremost, Charlton, since we have all these criers out there every day and all the broadcast media talking and crying about sports need to be back and it's going to come back, I want to see all of them get in the studio together. I want to see them stop practicing social distancing and internet conference calls throughout their sporting shows. I want them to be the vanguards and say, okay, we're going to be the torchbearers. We're going to show everybody that it's safe. We're going to drop the science because we want sports. We're going to show everybody that we're going to throw caution into the wind.
Yeah.
We're going to bring everybody into the studio, sit them at the round table like we used to do 3 months ago.
Right.
Instead of practicing social distance to show everybody that it's safe.
Well, Big C, that's a good question. Why have we not seen that? Your thoughts?
Well, no, and I'm serious about that. I'm not being flippant. I want everybody who keeps crying that we got to have sports. We got to bring sports back. There's a need for sports. There's a need for these athletes to be out there and be combatants against each other. I want you to show the athletes how it's done. I want you to come out there and get face-to-face in the studio with each other.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to do as broadcasters. I want you to take the lead. I want you to be the guy to say, hey, we are the people who are showing everybody in America that it's safe. There is no need to go out there and practice social distancing because we are the guys. We're crying for you to come out here and play, and we're showing you that it's safe. We don't need to practice social distancing.
Yeah.
We can sit elbow to elbow in the studio. We can sit there and be argumentative with each other. We can fly back and forth across the country and meet up. We don't have to stay at home.
Yeah.
If you're so animate about getting sports back, then you be the vanguards of that, and you be the bell cow, and go out there and take the lead and bring everybody back into the studio at the workplace.
I think about some of the reasons that we all like baseball. I remember playing it when I was a little boy. I think it was Little League Baseball. I think I started at 10. I played it from 10 and 11. And then to me, it was something that people can do. But my very first baseball game, it was playing at the local school. And I remember just getting together with my brothers and some friends. We had a baseball. We didn't have baseball plates, but people would put a hat down for first place, second base, and third base, and then home plate. And then somebody would use a shoe for the pitching mound, Big C. That's how sophisticated the first baseball field I played on. And we didn't have lines on the baseball thing, so we took some flour. My mom always baked, so we would take some flour from Mama's cabinet and go mark at least the home box, the batter's box, and put a mark where each base was, and we put a hat around it. So we did our thing with the imagination, and I think baseball, we didn't have to think about that stuff as kids, but I know why people miss it. I don't know your first experiences with baseball, Big C, but that was mine. We made our own plates, we made our own bases, and the only thing we had that was really official was that Louisville Slugger and a real baseball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I understand the drive for people to want to see sports because it's been such an integral part of American life and the fabric of America. Even during the Depression, Charlton, you had baseball, you had boxing that Americans could turn to. I mean, it was the early days of football also. Americans still watched and participated in those games. It was an outlet. It's an emotional outlet for people, Charlton, to get away from the ho-hum of everyday life, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
You have this where you can go fantasize about. And everyone fantasizes about being a professional athlete. But I want all of the broadcasters, and we're part of that group, to be the vanguard, to be the leaders, to say, we're not afraid.
Yeah.
Go out there. Bring yourselves back into the studio.
Yeah.
Say that you're not afraid, that you want to be a part of this, that you want to show the American public, the American people, that it's safe to go out. I mean, whether it's a news outlet, whether it's a sports outlet, I'm not seeing the people physically getting together because they understand and respect the science. They're not sitting there playing the political end of it, Charlton, which so many people are doing that because of the finance. That's the political part when you talk about the money.
Yeah.
You're not talking about the health and safety. So once all these broadcast crews and companies come back together in their studios, that will mean that they have gotten past the science of it, Charlton, and they've fallen into that political financial arena, and they don't care about their health.
Well, I think they've seen it. They've followed the lead from South Korea, Big C, and they're figuring out why are the South Korean baseball leagues being able to get money from TV revenue, and America's not able to. You know, we're the smartest country on the planet, right? Everybody says America's the smartest country in the universe. We all, at least egotistically, we believe that, even though we buy most of our goods and services from other countries, Big C. So with no fans allowed in the stadiums, think about it again. We've seen it in South Korea. What would empty stadiums look like? And what would it cost? I'm going to get into the NFL later, but what would it cost Major League Baseball if they don't have fans? And really the question is, it's really not that much because they're looking at the TV package. They're not canceling the TV and letting the fans in. They're canceling the fans coming in, and they want to get the TV money in. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, that's what it all comes down to in all professional leagues, even the NBA and NFL. It comes down to broadcast revenue. That's where teams are making their money. When you look at these copious contracts that the league signed with the broadcast companies. When I grew up, Charlton, there was one baseball game that came on, period. That was it. And that was on NBC, and I believe it was on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we came in with Monday Night Baseball. I believe that came in around 75, where they started having Monday Night Baseball.
Yeah.
So there was 2 games a week. You know, once I grew up a little bit, was in college, and that Monday night game came on, so there was twice a week that you saw baseball.
Yeah.
Now all the teams have their own broadcast networks to saw all 162 games on television. So when you think about the revenue that's out there now, and that comes from the games that are being broadcast, if you look at the attendance in the ballpark, it is down from 40 years ago when you had one game a week on television versus what you have on television now, Charlton. And so because you can sit at home, you can sit at work, you can stream it on your phone, you can watch it on your laptop, wherever you want to see a game, you have accessibility. Where when I was a kid, there was no accessibility except for Saturday afternoon when you were watching that game. So as owners can care less about the attendance. We've seen games with nobody in the ballpark in Chicago and Baltimore.
Yeah.
But the broadcast company was still there paying the revenue.
Yeah, they still pay the revenue. There's going back in African-American history before the Big C pause comes up. His name was, they called him Jacko Maxwell. His real name was Sherman Lander. They called him Jacko Maxwell. December 18, 1907. He was an American sportscaster, and he was a part of the Negro League Baseball, Big C. Many veteran journalists to this day, there's a guy by the name of Sam Lacey of the Baltimore Afro-American. He believed that Maxwell was the first African-American sports broadcaster in history, and oftentimes he would just come in and do games, and he didn't have a lot of money coming in, but it fed his spirit, it fed his soul. And to think about how people are so dismayed that they can't go to a ballpark and they can't go to a ball game. And I said this before, and I was being somewhat flippant, but also true, that for the first time, really, Major League Baseball and mainstream has been treated by coronavirus the way African Americans, other people of color, have been treated by white Americans. You couldn't go to the restaurant you wanted to go to. They said no. You couldn't rent the hotel you wanted to rent. They said no. You couldn't buy a house in the neighborhood you wanted to buy it in. They said no. Oftentimes when you went to apply for certain jobs, they just said no. They said no, they said no, they said no. And then things somewhat changed with the Civil Rights Movement. But African Americans got through it, Big C. Got through it. And I think for baseball and any other sport, when an athlete gets injured, or even when a guy comes out of high school and then goes into college, and they redshirt him, that means you can't play this year, but you can play next year once you get bigger, stronger, and better, and the guy ahead of you moves on. Why not look at health the same way? Why not just say, we're going to put everything on pause for a year, kind of like the Olympics is doing, and when guys are better, like the good old boy that pulled his hamstring or whatever it was, Achilles tendon, they said he pulled both, Kevin Durant, Big C. He's not crying that he couldn't play for a year. Why not let everyone get healthy and come back later, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the difference in Kevin Durant is he had a contract and he was going to be paid under that contract, so his money was guaranteed that he was going to get. As we look at everyone out there, it's not just the sports that everyone's clamoring about.
Yes, the money.
You think about the athletes, but you think about the tens of thousands of people who have lost their jobs, who are affiliated with these sports teams, from high school through college through professional. We only look at the athletes. We're not looking at all of the sports staff that are around, the personnel that facilitate through the stadium.
Yeah.
And when you look at the ushers, the hot dog vendors, the parking lot attendants, security, all of these people that are around within a stadium. And like I said, there are tens of thousands of people who have lost their jobs and their livelihood that depended on these venues. I think you guys have that new arena out there in San Francisco. The Warriors
the Chase Center. The Chase Center,
the Warriors would only play, I believe, 41 regular season basketball games in that arena.
Yeah.
But the arena was booked for just under 300 events for the year. So you're looking at the staff who relied on that arena to support their families. And when that arena was closed down, where do they go for substance for their life, Charlton? I mean, that unemployment is only going to last for so long.
Yeah.
And that's in every venue around the country. As we look at construction in some of these newer venues that have slowed down because of social distancing and people couldn't go to work. But those people were looking to have a full paycheck, and some of those paychecks have been cut in half.
Yeah.
But you just don't look at a sporting team when it comes down to a venue. You have to look at how many days out of the year that sporting venue is booked. It's not supported by a basketball team or by a football team. That's generally the least amount of money that venue will make compared to other events that it's booked for, concerts and motocross events and other things so on.
Yep, they got to keep it rolling, and they will. We'll take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. I want to talk to you about something that the NFL is doing, and Colin Kaepernick has to be pretty peed off because now people are getting grants to support what he talked about, and he got fired for it, Big C. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And there's an app that I love called Google. Or Alexa, just say Google. Or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But as I told you, you gotta have a smart TV or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Really happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. When you reach out to them, tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. And you can do the same thing for your sports teams when they come back. Coca-Cola does it too, Big C. What did Mean Joe Green say? Have a Coke on a smile back in the day? Just call 800-772-8624. That's 772-8624. Also looking for opportunities in real estate. Go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. Really looking forward to that. You know, we talked it was just the other day that there are some guys who happen to be Caucasian that are finally, they're not giving a speech about it. And I'm not trying to be pedantic. People do what they want to do. But at least signing their name to a petition to have an indictment drawn up against the good old boys down in Georgia that murdered that African-American kid. And one was a former police officer. And the DA. And all of them are just crooked people. And I'm still waiting for President Trump. Big C, you're down south. Has POTUS come on TV and said anything about the slaying of a man who went out jogging? You know how many people jog in this country, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, like I said, this comes down to voting. I mean, I don't look for athletes to be the leader out there in what I do and what I think in society and how society moves. When we have to rely on athletes to put their name forward and speak out in front of society, that means that we don't care. That means that we haven't cared enough to go out and vote. Because our political elected officials, Charlton, should be the ones that you're calling on, that you're petitioning. Yes, it's nice when athletes speak up because they have recognition.
Yeah.
But if you take the time and vote the right people in the office, then these are the situations you're not calling on athletes about.
Yeah.
I mean, calling on an athlete is like standing in line waiting on the next pair of Jordan shoes to come out.
Yeah.
Then you're relying on somebody else to speak for you because you're too scared to speak for yourself. And that too scared to speak for yourself is what causes these situations to continue to occur.
Yeah, it happens too much. But I love speaking out about it. I don't want to be a sycophant. The NFL has awarded 2 new grants in social justice initiative. As you mentioned, when Michael Jordan put out some new tennis shoes, and I wonder if people would have looked on the inside of their shoes, where they actually manufactured. Just kind of a quiz people can give themselves. But the NFL awards 2 new grants in social justice initiative, and that's also, I think, 7 overall. And primarily, it's going to help, including focusing on inspiring, motivating, and preparing students from underrepresented communities to succeed in law school and beyond. More than 25,000 students from all 50 states have been touched by, it's called the CLOE, to include judges, academicians, public servants, and private practitioners. It's receiving $50,000 from the league's player owner social justice working group. I think is a good start because we always say the NFL can do more, and they can. But I love what you said about people buying shoes as opposed to voting. You can't assume that everyone who bought a shoe didn't vote, but there are a lot more people trying to buy a shoe than there are seem to voting at times. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to assume that it is, Charlton, because when you realistically look at every time there's a new shoe release, there's lines outside of every kind of store you can think of. But when the voting comes along, Charlton, you don't get that many lines. I mean, voting is generally in just a couple of polling stations, and you don't see that many people running out. You don't hear that, they used up all the ballots in 2 minutes online.
Yeah.
When they have these voting initiatives, but yet the last pair of Jordans that were released, they were bought up in 2 minutes online. So can you imagine how many million pairs of shoes that were bought up in 2 minutes?
Yeah, I'm sure there was. And everybody has. I'm sure people that buy shoes vote. I bought different shoes, but I don't think I've ever missed a year of voting. But I do want to just add this because it's before Colin Kaepernick. There's a program called Success for All. It was developed in 1987 at Johns Hopkins University and became an independent nonprofit foundation in 1999. It's helped nearly 3 million children nationwide and currently is working with 125 school districts in 38 states as well as in Canada and the United Kingdom. They're all doing things to try to help young kids and kids that are in impoverished communities, Big C. So it just doesn't get on TV, and they don't get out there a lot the way we want to put them out there. So I really appreciate there's a lot of people that are doing things. Even one more thing I want to just bring out, the league's initiative grew from player demonstrations like taking a knee concerning social justice, including kneeling during the national anthem. More than $44 million in grants have gone to organizations nationwide, including more than 750 grants provided by the NFL Foundation to current NFL and former NFL players of their choices. There's a lot of things going on in the communities. It's just not publicized, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, if you understand where that money came from, when the NFL and the Players Association set aside a $97 million grant, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's where all this money is coming from. It's not any new money. It's money that was set aside as part of the $97 million agreement for social injustice at the Players Association about them taking a knee and not standing for the national anthem. This is part of the agreement that they struck. This is no new money. This is money that was there, and now they're just dispersing it.
Well, let me ask you this thing, and I want to go back to this thing because you talked about people standing in line for shoes. I don't want to assume that all of them were African American. I know a lot of mainstream guys buy tennis shoes also. Everybody gives them out when you go to their college campus. All those athletic directors, most of them are Caucasian guys. They're giving out that same product too. So it's not just that it's all African Americans, but there is a program that I think you're well aware of. It's called Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America. It also uses its funding to help bridge the gap between police officers and communities that they serve to provide youngsters with a mentor. But I got to ask this thought because it's been said, and I know I've had my own racial profile incidents with Caucasian police officers over the years. I think the first time happened when I was about 18 years old. I had a gun pointed at me just for being told to pull over, and I was getting my driver's license as I was asked to. So when you have this heinous incident down in Georgia, and there's so many that's happened all over this country, at what point do we see law enforcement chastise law enforcement to realize that some of these fears are valid? If not some, but a lot of these fears are valid, that people may have a mistrust, and I would hate to be pulled over at nighttime. I always, if it's happened to me, I want to find a light, a lit place if I can, or a gas station or someplace. I don't want to be in the dark because I've seen too many bad things happen, not only to people that I know, but I've read about as well. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's two things that you said that I think you missed what you said. You said mentorship in a program. What is a parent? A parent is a mentor. And so you have to have parental guidance in your household. You have to have salience enough to understand what you mean, what your kids mean to you, and that you're the bridge to their future, and you have to show them the right way. I mean, Donny Hathaway did a song years ago. The children are our future. Teach them well and let them see the way. Show them all the beauty they have inside.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about law enforcement, when you had law enforcement that let this guy go, what do you say in an incident like that? Law enforcement is wrong. There's a lot of bad police out there, but there's many more great policemen out there, Charles. It's just that every time we get a bad police, it resonates against all those that are good. Just like when you have someone of a minority culture,
yeah,
and there's somebody bad within that, it resonates back against everybody else. Everyone gets judged for that one who did bad. And that's the problem we have in society, is that no one wants to take the time to understand each other.
Yeah.
And until we can get that way as an American society, we're always going to be behind. We have so many different cultural differences in this country, and we have those, just like with the dog whistles that come out of the administration now, is that they're telling people that they're losing what they once owned.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest fear in America right now. When you talk about racial divide, white Americans fear that they're losing what belongs to them. They think this country they're entitled to every benefit of this country, and nobody else is. You hear it on news outlets, the Brown Menace, how when the administration took over, that Mexico was going to overrun this country.
Yeah.
And he needed to build this wall. He's put more emphasis in that wall and more money into that wall than he has into this pandemic that's been killing Americans. There's been more Americans die than we've had illegal aliens come over, and yet he spends no time talking about the plight of these Americans that are dying from this horrific coronavirus disease, and he still talks about this wall being constructed.
Yeah.
Because that's the legacy to his history, is a wall, and that's everything that people will always look back, and this wall will have his name attached to it, just like with the Affordable Care Act. It had Obama's name attached to it. He wants this wall, to have something attached to him instead of, eliminating the racial divide in our country.
Well, I can understand that too, but I still would say this here. I was raised right. At the same time, I was raised very well, I believe. I mean, that's what I believe, and I know I have been. And the times that I had been pulled over, it wasn't because my parents didn't prepare me properly. It happened because there were people who had the power and the gun and the badge.
You missed what you just said. You said your parents prepared you properly to be pulled over. You said they did not. They did, because you knew the actions to take when you were being pulled over by law enforcement. You knew the proper language to use when you were pulled over by law enforcement, whether it was justified or unjustified. Your parents taught you how to protect yourself and stay alive. They didn't tell you to be, have adversity towards law enforcement when they pulled you over. They didn't ask you to be confrontational.
Yeah.
They told you to be smart and stay alive. This is what mentoring is, Charlton. When you teach someone how to stay alive, not to die, but how to stay alive.
Yeah, I still don't know what the kid could have done different. He was jogging. I've been jogging many times.
And that's a different incident. When you're talking about law enforcement, you're talking about criminal acts. With what happened in Georgia, you were talking about being pulled over by law enforcement. Your parents told you how to stay alive being pulled over by law enforcement.
Yeah.
We can't protect any part of society against stupidity on the street, against criminal activity on the street. But your parents taught you how to stay alive in dealing with law enforcement.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And can I do what you're asking me to do? I'm going to reach into the glove compartment and get my registration. My wallet's in my back pocket. Yeah,
That's called mentorship. And when you don't have mentorship in the home, you all of a sudden, why the hell you pulling me over? What the hell did I do? You always blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That's what have been coming out of your mouth instead of the mentorship from your parents.
Yeah, we've seen it's a long way to go, but I love giving out that message too. I want to ask you something, Big C, in the final 10 minutes or so, because the NFL, and I love what they're doing, because you and I just did something, and it was impromptu. I had no idea what you were going to say, but we've talked about it before, that we have been coached in how to survive being pulled over by law enforcement. I've had law enforcement in my family also. And some of them were the ones saying how to behave, just be compliant, and just be passive. Be yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And I'm not saying that doesn't stop people from being harmed, because I know the people who've tried that, it didn't work. But at least we got to have some way to start. So the NFL really appreciate what they've been doing. I also want to go financially. The NFL and team executives, they agreed on a proposal, and I want your thoughts on this, to raise the debt limits of each club by $150 million in response to COVID-19. And sources said the agreements reached in a conference call on Monday. The former debt limit was $350 million, now up to $500 million for the 2020 seasons. And owners are expected to accept that proposal by the 19th. Because they're going to lose a lot of money, so the leagues allow them to spend more money. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they're going to lose money. It's not about spending money. It's about being able to protect yourself tax-wise. And even though the NFL is a 5-1-3-0 they can still write it off as a loss.
Yeah.
That's what the debt limit is. It is raising that. It's paper movement of money.
Yeah.
It's not that they're going to actually lose that amount of money, Charlton, because contracts have been signed. They're going to find a way to play the games because they're not willing to lose the money versus somebody's life, Charlton.
Yep.
The games will go on to some degree. They're going to put a product out there, and they will find a way. They will convince players that it is safe and healthy, just like when they had the CBA vote, Charlton. Everyone was saying it was a bad deal, which it was a bad deal. It was a bad deal for those players who make over a couple $1 million a year, because now all of a sudden you're playing a game at a loss of pay. It was not a bad deal for 60% of the players in the union, Charlton, because they make minimum wage.
Yeah.
And so they're getting a $100,000 pay increase. You're sitting there and thinking about getting a 20% pay increase for the year for playing one more game. There wasn't many players that are making minimum wage that was going to turn that down.
Yeah.
And that's what you look at with this debt increase that the league is putting in for the owners. They're just protecting themselves.
So when I ask you, for example, no fans allowed, and we talked about it in baseball, what would empty stadiums cost the NFL teams, and how they're going to try to solve the financial strain? No one's going to replace the lost revenue. Is that what you think that $500 million debt ceiling is now, Big C? Your thoughts?
That's what it is, because when you look at it, if they don't have fans for the regular season, Charlton, it could cost each team some $70 million, I believe. And so when you're thinking about losing $70 million, you have to have an offset for that. So if you double it up in a debt ceiling, then you're covered.
Yeah, they're finding a way to help their own friends, and that's a good thing. Unfortunately, Big C, with the incidents that occurred during COVID-19, this pandemic has caused a rise in domestic violence. I think that the rideshare company Uber has chipped in with I think 50,000 free rides for anyone who's been a victim of domestic violence to give them an opportunity to leave. I don't know how they could verify if you are or not, but I think that's a good gesture by Uber. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, domestic violence, Charlton, has been on the rise, and it was inevitable that this was going to occur. I mean, a lot of people are in relationships. They thought the relationships were good, but all of a sudden when you're stuck with somebody for 30, 60 days every day, and you find the differences that you have, you start complaining about things that may have occurred some time ago. So this is what has occurred. The rise of domestic violence statistic is an actual one. And so it's great for Uber to make this initiative, Charlton, to provide people access to leave a bad environment that they're in. It's just a matter where people take, usage of that. And we've seen a lot of people in domestic violence situations throughout the history of the United States refusing to leave because, they find excuses to accept it. But Uber's made a great humanitarian gesture, Charlton, in providing a way out.
Yeah, they really have, and hopefully people can take heed of that. Again, anyone going through that garbage, it may fall on deaf ears, but if it's anyone that can, just call 911. It's amazing how people change when they have handcuffs and guns and badges show up. They don't seem as tough after all, so I hope people can take heed to that too. It's a way to keep everybody a little bit safer overall. I want to ask you in the final few minutes, because I know you and I talked about Major League Baseball, and you have millionaires arguing with billionaires about who's going to take a pay cut, and no one really seems to care for the fans. When I go to a game, I have media say it doesn't cost me anything, but when mainstream goes to a game, it costs them from $30 to $60 just to park at a stadium. That's just for the park at a stadium parking lot before you even buy a ticket and a hot dog, Big C. So this talk about, I've heard some things that you said about SEC, and the commissioner from the SEC was going to say, we will succeed from the union, maybe not the union, but they'll succeed from the other Power 5 conferences and play their own schedule. They'll play SEC versus SEC and not worry about trying to appeal to the NCAA. They feel that, I guess, football is kind of the religion down there. Well, David Shaw for the Pac-12, he lamented the same things. He was suggesting that maybe the Pac-12 will play only Pac-12 football, and they'll have maybe a North versus South, and at the end of the day, they'll crown their own conference championship. I think that's bad if just because of 1 year, if football does it, I think it's bad for all of football. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's not just bad for football, Charlton. It's bad for people. When you think about the term student athlete, this will be a total separation of student athletes if it returns, Charlton. It will say, no, they're no longer student athletes. They're just athletes on campus, which everybody's always known. But, they tried to use that moniker, student athletes, that you have to go into class with the GPA. The excuse that everybody's going to use is, okay, they're satellite learning. We know that student athletes don't all satellite learn, Charlton. That, they have people doing their work for them. And how would anybody be accountable at that point? If everybody's doing everything online, you got somebody that's taking an exam for half the football team, one person. Everybody has the same answer. So, this is what you're going to be looking at. If the colleges decide to put the student athletes on the field, then the NCAA might as well just disband. Because it no longer will be a viable entity any longer. Yeah. These conferences, as we talked about a few days ago, that the Power 5 would break off and do their own thing. They're the only ones that can compete for the national championship anyway. Yeah. All those other schools are out there competing for crumbs. So that Power 5 conference will become their own entity in football and in basketball, baseball, and they will dictate their own rules. It will no longer be the NCAA. They will just call themselves the Power 5.
Well, I think they've also told the NCAA, why are you putting your hand in our pocket? We want more of that free money labor for ourselves, and the fact that they can do it, and they most likely will do it. We know the NCAA has been doing, they all have unclean hands, if that makes any sense to you. So everybody knows eventually the power struggle is going to say, why are we giving some of our money to them good old boys to tell us what to do? We can do our own thing, and we know that's going to happen. In fact, they're already talking about that happening. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on the apps that I love called Google Our Alexa, just say Google. Our Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Big C, I want to close out today a little bit differently because I really hope that we can get sports back. But even if we go over to France, there'll be no sporting events in France before September. And it's worth noting that the Tour de France is scheduled to begin August 29th after being postponed due to coronavirus, Big C. So if they're doing things in France and they're pushing it back to September, I believe baseball at the end of September, we're getting into the playoffs for October, Big C. So if we listen to France, there'll be no baseball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, like I said, Charlton, to put sports out there is that you're forgetting about the science and you're going straight to the political, economic part of it. And once all these broadcast companies come together and put everybody back in the studio, then they will believe what they're saying about we need sports again.
Yeah.
All of them have promotions that come on talking about it's just a pause and we'll be back soon. Why don't you be the leaders in the vanguard? I mean, when you talk about the Tour de France, and that's a road race, but you always have the spectators on the side of the road, and you have all the riders bunched together, so they don't have any social distancing. Everything about sports is to the forbidding of social distancing is what it's all about. And so I'm still waiting on the day that all the broadcast companies, whether it's news or sports, will take the lead and say, we feel that it's safe to be together.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the athletes being safe together. We feel it's safe for all of us to be together in the same studio again. And let them hug up with each other and then play a sport with them.
Yeah, well, I think we were talking about Disneyland in Shanghai, China. See, Big C Sports is all over. The universe talked about Big C Sports in China. They opened Disneyland in Shanghai, and they said they had sold-out crowds, even though they limited capacity to 30% of what it was. So if you get 1 million people a day coming through the gates, then maybe that's 333,000. That's still a lot of people. And I think as Dr. Fauci was speaking today, we're going to have to see what happens by the end of the month when people they're easing up on social distancing, and they're going to see some numbers spike. POTUS doesn't believe in that because he said this will be over in about, by Easter. Didn't he say Easter? But that's proved to be a little bit wrong. I hope that we can all just trust science, and we'll get to play sports again someday, but we got to be healthy. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, like I said, I'm looking forward to the day that all of the broadcasters get back together in the studio and stop doing these satellite broadcasts. And also, once again, I want to say thank you and stay safe to all our frontline healthcare workers, the nurses and the doctors, and the first responders.
Gotta say thank you to everybody. We wish you all love, peace, and soul. In the words of the great Don Kanigas, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I love are called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing as a mystic. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.